and died in Iran in 1905, over 10,000 people attended his funeral. This American physician had founded Iran's first medical school and was beloved by Iranians. Today, we're exploring one of history's most dramatic relationship reversals, how Iran and the United States went from a century-long friendship to bitter enemies. You'll understand the three pivotal moments that destroyed this partnership, why diplomatic relations have been severed since 1980, and what the current conflict reveals about the impossibility of rebuilding trust once it's broken. Let me turn to someone who can help us understand how we got from 10,000 Iranians mourning an American doctor to chants of death to America. What exactly happened to this relationship?
It's honestly one of the most dramatic reversals in diplomatic history. According to the page content from New York University archaeologist Daniel Thomas Potts, from 1834, when the first Protestant American mission was established in Urmia, until 1953, Americans were literally seen as the good guys in Iran.
Wait, 1834 to 1953? That's over a century of friendship?
Exactly. And it wasn't just diplomatic politeness. American missionaries built schools, colleges, hospitals, and medical schools throughout what was then called Persia. Many of these institutions still exist today. Dr. Cochran that you mentioned? He was fluent in Persian, Turkish, Kurdish, and Assyrian, and founded a hospital in Urmia in 1879.
So what made America different? Why were we the good guys?
Persia was caught between two imperial powers, Britain and Russia, who were competing for influence during what's called the Great Game. According to the Wikipedia content, the United States was seen as a more trustworthy foreign power because we had no territorial ambitions in the region.
Interesting. So we weren't trying to colonize or exploit them.
Right. In fact, Americans Arthur Millspaugh and Morgan Schuster were even appointed as treasurers general by the Shahs. When Iran's parliament appointed Morgan Schuster in 1911 to reform their chaotic finances, his efforts were so effective that Britain and Russia pressured Iran to fire him.
So the other imperial powers saw America as a threat to their influence?
Absolutely. But here's what's crucial. Schuster's work left a lasting positive impression on Iranian nationalists who saw America as genuinely helpful rather than exploitative. This goodwill lasted for decades.
So what changed? What was the turning point?
August 19, 1953. According to the Council on Foreign Relations timeline, U.S. and British intelligence agencies helped elements in the Iranian military overthrow Iran's prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh.
Why did we do that? What had Mossadegh done?
He nationalized the Britain-owned Anglo-Persian Oil Company, which led London to impose an oil embargo on Iran. The coup brought back to power the Western-friendly monarchy headed by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi.
So this was about oil and keeping a friendly leader in power?
Yes, but here's the thing. According to the GovFacts timeline, this created lasting Iranian resentment and is considered the original sin of the relationship. The Shah was deeply unpopular among much of the population and relied on U.S. support to remain in power until his overthrow in 1979.
So we went from being the trusted outsider to being seen as just another imperial manipulator.
Exactly. And it gets worse. According to the timeline, in 1957, the U.S. and Israeli intelligence helped create Savak, the Shah's secret police. So we directly aided the repressive apparatus that fueled revolutionary anger.
That's a pretty dramatic shift from building hospitals to supporting secret police.
And here's an ironic twist. Also in 1957, the United States and Iran signed the Cooperation Concerning Civil Uses of Atoms agreement as part of Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace initiative. This laid the foundation for Iran's nuclear program.
Wait, we helped start their nuclear program? The same program that's causing so much conflict today?
Yes. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, the United States later provided Iran with a reactor and weapons-grade enriched uranium fuel. Their collaboration continued until the start of Iran's 1979 revolution. It's the ironic origin of what becomes the central 21st century conflict.
So we literally created the problem we're now trying to solve. But let's talk about 1979. What exactly happened during the revolution?
February 11, 1979, the monarchy dissolution reached its definitive point when the Imperial Army declared neutrality, allowing the Revolutionary Council to assume total control. According to the interactive timeline, this turned a strategic ally into a primary ideological adversary.
And then came the hostage crisis.
November 4, 1979. According to Wikipedia, 66 Americans, including diplomats and civilian personnel, were taken hostage at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran by the Muslim student followers of the Imam's line with support from Ayatollah Khomeini.
How long did this last?
444 days. 52 of them were held until January 20, 1981. According to Britannica, the hostages were released minutes after Ronald Reagan was inaugurated. The crisis had dramatic effects on domestic politics in the United States and poisoned U.S.-Iranian relations for decades.
What were the hostage takers demanding?
They demanded that the United States extradite the Shah, who had been granted asylum by the Carter administration for cancer treatment. But according to the interactive timeline, this event led to the immediate implementation of an economic trade embargo by Washington, effectively ending formal bilateral communication.
So that's when diplomatic relations were severed?
Actually, according to Wikipedia, the two nations have had no formal diplomatic relations since April 7, 1980. Instead, Pakistan serves as Iran's protecting power in the United States, while Switzerland serves as the United States' protecting power in Iran.
Wait, so for over 40 years, these two countries have been talking through Pakistan and Switzerland?
Exactly. Contacts are carried out through the Iranian Interests section of the Pakistani embassy in Washington, D.C., and the U.S. Interests section of the Swiss embassy in Tehran. And in August 2018, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei banned direct talks with the United States entirely.
That's incredible. So we've gone from a century of friendship to not even being able to talk directly.
And the mistrust has only deepened. According to the U.S. Department of Justice mentioned in the Wikipedia content, Iran has attempted to assassinate U.S. officials and dissidents, including President Donald Trump.
Let's talk about the nuclear issue specifically. How did that become such a central point of conflict?
According to the GovFacts timeline, in 2002, Iran's secret nuclear facilities were revealed, which triggered decades-long standoff and crippling sanctions. But there was a breakthrough in 2015 with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action.
The Iran nuclear deal. What happened with that?
According to the CGTN timeline, the JCPOA was signed in July 2015, with Iran accepting significant limits on its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. It was widely regarded as the closest Iran and Western powers had come to diplomatic rapprochement since 1979.
But Trump pulled out of it.
In May 2018, during his first term, Trump unilaterally withdrew the U.S. from the JCPOA and mounted a maximum pressure campaign, reinstating and expanding sweeping sanctions. According to the timeline, it sent Iran's economy into a sharp and severe decline.
And that brings us to the current crisis. What's happening now?
According to the Outlook India review, on February 27, 2026, Oman's foreign minister said, "A peace deal is within our reach," as he was negotiating talks between Iran and the U.S. in Geneva. But the very next morning, Iran woke up to a joint military strike by the U.S. and Israel.
So they were literally negotiating peace when the attack happened?
Yes. And according to the University of Denver analysis, this isn't the first time. In June 2025, while representatives were in talks over Iran's nuclear program, Washington launched Operation Midnight Hammer, targeting 3 Iranian nuclear facilities.
That seems like it would completely destroy trust in negotiations.
Absolutely. The University of Denver scholar notes that Iranian officials have expressed concern that they don't want to be fooled again, and that any new negotiations might just be a ruse to conduct more attacks. As the analysis states, conducting military strikes during negotiations sets a dangerous precedent.
So the fundamental issue is trust.
Exactly. The University of Denver content emphasizes that trust and good faith are key components of any negotiations. Past negotiations between entrenched enemies like the US and Soviet Union required trust as a key component.
But how do you rebuild trust after 70 years of escalating conflict?
That's the trillion-dollar question. According to the Iranian explanations in the Wikipedia content, they see this as the natural and unavoidable conflict between the Islamic system and such an oppressive power as the United States, which is trying to establish a global dictatorship.
And what's the American perspective?
The Wikipedia content notes that various explanations have been considered in the West, including the Iranian government's need for an external enemy to justify domestic repression and bind the government to its loyal constituency.
So both sides see the other as fundamentally threatening to their system.
Right. And according to the current reporting, even domestic support in the U.S. is wavering. The Outlook India review mentions a Reuters Ipsos poll showing significant anti-war sentiment in the U.S. against attacks on Iran, with even Republicans voicing opposition.
That's interesting. So there might be more appetite for diplomacy than the current policy suggests.
Possibly, but the structural problems remain. According to the Congress.gov document, U.S. sanctions have adversely affected Iran's economy, but Iranian government behavior remains a threat to U.S. interests and those of partners, including Israel.
So when you step back from all this history, what's the bigger picture here?
What we're seeing is how a century of friendship can be completely destroyed by a few pivotal moments: the 1953 coup, the 1979 revolution and hostage crisis, and the ongoing nuclear standoff. Each betrayal makes the next one more likely.
And once that trust is broken, it becomes almost impossible to rebuild.
Exactly. The University of Denver analysis shows how attacking during negotiations doesn't just end those talks, it jeopardizes all future diplomacy. When you bomb someone while they're trying to negotiate with you, why would they ever trust you again?
It's like the ultimate diplomatic own goal.
And the tragedy is that both countries have paid an enormous price. Iran's economy has been devastated by sanctions, while the U.S. has spent trillions on military operations in the region. Meanwhile, the original issues, oil, regional influence, nuclear weapons, remain unresolved.
So here's what this really comes down to. We've witnessed one of history's most dramatic relationship reversals, from Dr. Cochrane's funeral drawing 10,000 mourners to a conflict that seems impossible to resolve. The lesson isn't just about Iran and America, it's about how quickly trust can be destroyed and how difficult it is to rebuild.
And the current moment shows us that even when both sides might want to find a way forward, the accumulated weight of 70 years of mistrust makes every gesture suspect, every negotiation a potential trap.
The next time you hear about Iran-US tensions, remember that this isn't just about nuclear weapons or regional politics. It's about two countries that once trusted each other completely and now can't even talk directly. Sometimes the most important diplomatic lesson is the simplest one. Once you break trust, you might never get it back.